Are you someone who has access to a 457B account from your job and wondering whether or not you should use it? If so, keep listening as we break down the pros and the cons of this account. Hello, and welcome to the Wealth Minded MD podcast with your money best friends. I'm Dr. Alicia Taylor.
And I'm Dr. Brittne Halford.
And of course, we're here to help you build wealth and make good money decisions so you can create the life you desire with more control over your time.
Hey, Alicia, one of the most important financial tasks we do as doctors is protect ourselves, which means getting the right insurance. I recall purchasing my insurance policy just a few days before I graduated from residency. What was your experience?
So I got my insurance when I graduated from medical school right before I started residency. I actually called a few agents, but I had the best service from Pradeep Auto at PKA Insurance Group. He was super responsive and personable. Unlike some of the other agents, Pradeep actually got me quotes from all the major companies and actually took the time to explain the nuances in each of their policies. What I loved most is that he wasn't just this way for me. Whenever I would send one of my friends to him, he would not only speak to them, but he'd also let them know where to go or who to contact if there were better options or discounts available.
At PKA Insurance Group, Pradeep Auto and Matthew Peterson are independent brokers focusing on disability and life insurance. They excel in securing coverage for physicians and other medical professionals. Discounts on disability insurance can range from 10 to 40% depending on your situation. And there is now an A+ rated carrier offering up to $10 million of life insurance without lapse. If you are very healthy with limited to no medical issues, approval is likely in 5 minutes. Reach out to PKA Insurance to discuss your disability or life insurance needs at www.pkainsurance.com or call 1-800-258-1018.
All right, Brittne. So today is April 9th, and it is your birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. I'm going to be nice and not ask you how old you're turning, although I already know the answer to that question. I'm going to let you feel young.
29, girl, 29.
Right. Okay. I'm going to just roll with it today. I'm going to let you have your day. What do you have planned? What are you doing?
It's really interesting, Alicia, because I typically work on my birthday and I am working this birthday as well. Somehow I just don't protect the time. I am teaching and then, of course, recording this episode with you. I think I will likely get a massage later. I really enjoy massages. And there's a gift card that I have not used from past where it's a Thai massage. So it's going to be a little bit different than the typical massages that I get, but I'm sure it'll work out all the kinks to just make me super relaxed. So I'm excited about that.
You mentioned a gift card for a massage last year. So I am actually curious, Brittne. Is this the same gift card from last year, or do you just always get gift card massage? Help me understand.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I did mention a gift card last year. So I used that gift card because it had an expiration date of 2024. I'm hopeful that this other gift card does not have an expiration date. I have not looked at it yet. But yeah, that's one of the things that we typically give each other or people give us is gift cards for couples massages. I did not mention that my husband was accompanying me on this massage. So this is going to be a solo and I'm going to like combine the time. So you know how a couple's massage is typically 60 minutes for each of you. Now I'm going for a 90-minute or a 2-hour massage. We might need a bathroom break in between.
Wait, so you're purposely leaving out your husband. I love this for you, but I am curious because people who bought you the gift card wanted you to have some bonding time and all this. And you're like, nah, I'm going to use it all on myself. Are you and your husband good over there?
We are good. We are good. But you know, our schedules get so packed. To book him out for a midday anything is not going to happen. So typically when we hang out, it's in the evening. We have a babysitter. We rarely hang out midday. Even on Saturdays, our Saturdays become packed because I have liturgical dance practice. Brooke has dance practice, and massage places aren't open at 8 o'clock in the evening. And so I'm going by myself. I'm leaving him at home for this one.
Gotcha. And then hopefully he's carved out some special time for you. You mentioned that he's busy, he's working. This is how I know you're so accommodating. Because for me and my birthday, I'm like, everybody need to take off work, take off work, take off work, take off work. Meanwhile, you are like, I'm working, he's working. I'm going to just take his massage. We'll meet later on in the evening. I'm like, y'all sound like a married couple, literally.
And we are, married with 2 kids, decades strong. We typically go out for some type of special dinner, and then Brooke really loves parties. So I'm sure she will have something planned. He usually helps to facilitate that. Take her to what is it called? Party center, party, whatever, the party store.
City that went out of business.
Party City. It went out. Well, you can tell that I am not up to date on current news. So he'll take her to some party store, get some balloons. She usually gets balloons and a cake, and she decorates a little bit. So we will have a fun, memorable time for me, but I really need to protect more time for myself and just acknowledge that as I am getting older, like that self-care is something that is a requirement, and why not indulge on your birthday? It would be good. It'll be memorable, but it might not be Leisha level birthday celebration.
That is true. That is true. But you know what? I'm happy for you. Happy birthday. Are you doing anything different with money? Are you expecting any gifts or anything? This is a financial podcast. So I wondered if you were like saving up, making this huge investment or something along those lines.
I'm not. We have goals that we want to meet for 2025, some of which we have already met. Shout out
Okay.
to us setting up a plan and making it work. And then the one thing that I really want to do is to purchase 2 new real estate properties. So I'm just saving up for that. And that will be a gift to our family once we are able to do that. But I'm not there yet and don't plan to purchase them today.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. For me, I have another money confession.
Well, you know what? That's what makes this podcast, because I don't think there are any podcasts out there that really talk about mistakes. Everybody wants to be picture perfect, and we're not. We make mistakes all the time. So, Leisha, thank you for your vulnerability and educating us.
Thank you. I have gone to a lot of conferences. It's so funny. My colleagues at work are like, you're always gone for a conference. And I'm like, yeah, I am. I went to a conference. I think I might have mentioned this in Puerto Rico. I was presenting some research down there. They asked for receipts and I forgot to give them one of the receipts. And so one of my money confessions is that the reimbursement is going to be a little less than maybe it should have been if I would have just gathered all the receipts. And so that's a lesson learned for me of I need to make sure that I am being thorough, make sure that I'm not sending emails in haste. This usually happens for me because my to-do list is so long that whenever somebody emails me, I've learned at this stage of my life, if I don't email them right back when I see it, I sometimes forget to email them. When they sent me the email, I was like, oh my gosh, this is about my money. Let me make sure, I'm responding to this. And I was trying to respond so quickly and I was doing so many different things that I just forgot to add in a receipt. And so that's totally on me. Lesson learned. It wasn't that much, but still I'm like, man, that would have been nice. The other part of that is, again, I run into this issue each year. Each year you tell me the same thing. Each year I don't do what you tell me and I have the same issue. And so it's a cycle, which is saving money in this account for conferences, because oftentimes I'm having to pay upfront for a lot of things. And I go to so many conferences because I'm asked to speak or present or whatever. Although a lot of those expenses get reimbursed, it's a lot of money upfront. And this is like a prime time conference time for me. Like I mentioned, I went to Puerto Rico. I got to go to Hilton Head. I'm going to NIH pretty soon. I got to go to Kansas City. Like there's a bunch of conferences and a lot of these require registration fees and flights and hotels. And some of this stuff, a lot of it I'm paying for in advance. So now I'm in the situation where I'm like, man, I think I'm like owed $4 or $5 grand at this point. Man, it would be nice to get that soon. So I wish that I had kind of saved a little bit more in that savings account so that it wouldn't affect me as much. Because right now I'm definitely feeling the crunch.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. You always love to travel. And what I've learned about you is like you seize the opportunity. So if there is something for Leisha to do or to present at, she is there. If there's a party, she's there. You going on a trip, I'm going too. And I love that about you, because you are making the most out of your existence. My husband and I talk about this all the time. Like there's a birth date and a death date, and what you do in between, that's what really matters. And I can see that you really want to make an impact in the world by educating people on sports medicine, by making impact with relationships with your friends, and going to these conferences, whether it's for yourself to educate yourself or to share a message. I am guilty of getting very sage advice and not implementing it. So somehow we got to set a date on the calendar. Brittne, you do the stuff that's been on your to-do list. And Leisha, you do the stuff. And we just put ourselves on mute and we get it done, have like a work date together. But I wonder if you could still submit that receipt. Is it too late for them to just add that little bit on?
That is a great question. As we're recording this, the conference kind of was a while ago, and I think the reimbursement check is already in the mail. That's what I believe, or at least I hope it is. Shoot, let me email them and ask ETA. So I think it might already be in the mail. It's okay. It's okay. Lesson learned for me. That amount is not going to break me. Thank you, Jesus, that I have enough of a cushion there. But I'm just like, man, we got to figure out a new system, right? I can't be shoveling out all these thousands and then y'all reimbursing me months later.
I hear you. I hear you. It takes time. All right. Well, hopefully you get your money soon. And hopefully you also enjoyed the conference. So it's like not all for nothing. I saw pictures. I know you enjoyed it. You had a nice summer beach, probably a little bit more sunshine and better weather. Got some exposure being in a new place with a new culture. So that's your little penny, I guess, for having a free trip.
Touche. Touche. As physicians, one of the most important things that we can do is make sure that we secure our income, because a lot of our financial plans are contingent on our high doctor income. One of the things that you will need to do is make sure that you get long-term disability insurance.
Now, Pradeep and his team at PKA Insurance Group have a reputation for putting people over profits and always doing what's best. Do not hesitate to email PKA Insurance and his team today.
They will help you get the insurance you need with the service you deserve.
Well, today, as we mentioned in the teaser, we are going to talk about 457Bs. And this is one thing that differs between us. I'm taking advantage of the 457B. You are not, and you have your reasons, and I have my reasons. And I think it's a really fruitful discussion, especially as high income earners who often work with employers who offer a 457B, for us to understand what are some of the nuances of the account, what are the benefits, what are the drawbacks, and who should actually start with using this account. So, Leisha, open us up. Tell us all about what is a 457B and why should we be paying attention to this?
Yeah, so a 457B is a kind of account that I find is offered to highly compensated employees at large nonprofit institutions. Maybe some for-profit institutions may have them as well, but I find them a lot in the academic world for folks who are doctors like you and I, who maybe work for a nonprofit. And what it is a type of pre-tax deferred compensation account. That means the money that you put into that account is not taxed, at least not in the current year. And so any money that you put in that account can save you money on your taxes each year. When you put the money into the account, you can choose how you want the money to be invested. And so the money can grow over time. And then you can take it out at a later date. It's called a deferred compensation account because you are deferring some of your compensation. And this works very similar to a 401k. The only difference is that it's not a retirement account. So 401k is a retirement account, right? You put the money in. A lot of people do it pre-tax. You let it grow over time, and then you take out the money in retirement, and then you pay taxes on the money in retirement at that time. But with a 457B, you actually don't have to wait until you retire. You can actually, at a lot of different places, choose to take the money out when you leave your employer. So if you are, let's say, age 40, and you decide to leave your employer because maybe you want to work at a different job at age 45, your employer, when they get notice that you're going to leave, will kind of ask you how you want that money to be distributed. That's something that makes it a little bit different from a retirement account. We call it deferred compensation because technically speaking, the money is not yet yours. It's money that you were paid, but instead of it going into your own account, the money still technically belongs to your employer until you leave and take the money out. There's a few slight nuances that I think, as I said earlier, make it a little bit different from a retirement account. But as we'll get into, there are a lot of pros and a few cons of this account that people may want to be aware of.
Thank you for explaining that. When I think about 457Bs, this was not something that I was initially aware of. I'm reflecting, I did not use it at Emory, and I don't know if Emory has one. So if you all don't know my history, I started as a hospitalist at Emory for 2 years, and then I moved to Boston. So I did not utilize this account my first 2 years at Emory. I was not even aware of it until I moved to Boston. Even when thinking about, okay, is this 457 the right account for us? Initially, I wanted to, of course, max out a 401k first, right? That's your retirement account that you should go for first because it's backed by the government. You have the elective deferrals. You often have a match. And then this 457B came up. And one of the things about the 457B is that it is tied to your employer. It is similar to a 401k tied to your employer. So it's different than an IRA, which you can open up yourself. When I thought about this, I asked my employer and they said, oh, you have to make a certain amount in order to get access to this account. So as a hospitalist, I have a set salary, but I also don't have a set salary. Sometimes when I would decrease the amount of time that I would work or pick up shifts or not. And so when I had this conversation with HR, I enrolled 1 year and then I got an email the second year saying I didn't meet the salary requirements. So I'm like, oh crap, do I want to use this account? You talk about it being a pre-tax account and reducing our taxable income now, but when we take it out in retirement, just like a 401k, we will have to pay ordinary income tax on the money in retirement. Or if we wanted to take it out before retirement, as you mentioned, is not necessarily a retirement account. It depends on how you set up your distribution when you leave your employer. So I had to think about that a little bit to say, okay, well, what will be the benefits of this account? And how would it help me today and help me later on in retirement? Or if I wanted to retire early at the age of 45, then how could it help me at that time as well? So, you know what I did? I picked up a couple of extra shifts so I could meet that requirement so that we could get the tax deductions and I could be putting money away in a tax deferred way, right? It's a tax protected account. So all of the growth on the investments that I choose within this account will be deferred from taxes. And so I would just have to pay taxes whenever I choose to pull it out. So I think that this account is really, really important for us to have an awareness of. This is not the first account that you want to fill up, but if you have a tax problem like me, then you just have to think about, okay, do I want to put money away now in a tax deferred protected manner? And what would be the plan for this money? And so we're going to talk a little bit about the drawbacks and how you could potentially use the money.
Yeah, like you stated, this is a pre-tax account, and so it's going to save you money on taxes. And usually the maximum amount you can contribute is around the same that you can contribute to a 401k or 403b. And so for 2025, you can stuff 23,500 into your 401k or 403b at work, and you can stuff an additional 23,500 into this account. And so for a lot of people who are, let's say, highly compensated, if you put 23,500 into this account and you're in the 30% tax bracket, wow, you're saving $6,000-$7,000 in taxes a year, if not more. And so for a lot of people who have a tax problem, as you stated, right, they're like, man, I'm paying way too much in taxes. I need to lower my taxes. This is a great account because it can allow you to invest money, have that money grow over time, build wealth, and decrease your taxes. So a lot of people feel like it's a no-brainer. Now, of course, you have to have the extra money to be able to put in the account. Some people, they're like, Alicia, that sounds great, but I kind of want to keep that 23,500. I already put some money into the 401k or 403b. I've got other financial priorities. So it's really something that you want to think about kind of after you've contributed to these other accounts. Like you stated, once you've maxed out your 401k or 403b at your job and gotten your match, because those accounts give you a match, once you've maybe done your backdoor Roth IRA, then maybe if you have some leftover money that you want to invest, then you might want to consider putting some money into this account. But I think it's probably helpful for us to start up with the advantages. So one advantage, as we mentioned, is it can save you money in taxes this year. Another advantage is that it's an investment account that's tax protected. So not only does it save you money in taxes this year, but the money that you put in the account as it's growing, you're not having to pay taxes on the growth. Another thing is because it's one of these deferred compensation pre-tax accounts, it lowers your adjustable gross income. And so for people who have student loans, it can lower some of their mandatory student loan payments. Some of those student loan payments, if you've got federal loans, are based on how much money you make. And so by lowering your adjusted gross income, you can lower that monthly student loan payment. So some people like that. Another big advantage, though, is that you can access the money once you leave your employer. You do not necessarily have to wait until you retire. One of the questions that I get a lot is, Leisha, I'm putting all this money into retirement accounts, but I don't want to work till I'm 65 or 59 and a half. What happens if I want to retire early? Or what happens if I just want to stop working earlier? Maybe I've got other priorities. Maybe I want to take a few years off of working or whatever. How am I going to support myself financially during that time? And so having access to money from this account can be really beneficial. A lot of the time, this is an account that people will use if they know they're going to retire early. If they know they're going to retire at age 45 or 50 or 55, then they might strongly consider utilizing this account. So I think those are some of the advantages. And this is why it seems like, correct me if I'm wrong, you chose to contribute to this account.
Yes, that is exactly right. I like that the 457B is something that I can do alongside the 401k. So if we have access to $23,500 in a tax protected fashion, then that doubles that right? I'm like, okay, this helps me. And so there have been years where I didn't fully fund the 457B. I fully funded the 401k, but I did not fully fund the 457B. So it really just depends on what you choose to do. This is an additional account that allows you to have more freedom and flexibility in some regards, because if you're somebody who wants to retire early, then this allows you to pull money out of the account before you're 59 and a half, penalty free. You still have to pay ordinary income tax on it, but you don't have to pay that 10% early withdrawal penalty. So I was thinking, okay, this will give me additional options in addition to helping us to protect some of our money, shield some of our money from taxes this year. So it just really depends on what you want to do. Now, there are some differences with this account that I really had to take into consideration. And Alicia, I think we've talked about some of these on prior episodes. But when you talk about deferred compensation, that means that the money technically is not mine yet, right? It's still my employer's and it's tied to my employer. And so I know we'll get into some of the differences between governmental versus non-governmental, but the one that I have, the 457B that I have with my employer, is a non-governmental plan. And so it's tied to my employer. So if something were to happen, like my employer files for bankrupt, then that money could be used to pay whatever debts my employer has. Now, I don't know. I haven't seen many things in the media, and I have not done a deep dive of research to look at a lot of these hospitals who have sold to private equity and then now are closing because they cannot pay their bills. Would that put my money at risk? Yes, it would if that were to happen. I had to really think about how strong is my employer as far as their finances? What is the historical representation and reputation of this hospital? What do I project as the future for this particular hospital? And for me, I work for a pretty strong organization. Every organization has their pitfalls. Don't get me wrong. I sit on the finance committee, and so I see some of the estimates. And then thankfully, our employer is pretty transparent for at least our department. They send, okay, how are we doing? So I kind of know a little bit of insight into the finances. And I think we are doing okay, right? Everybody could always do a little bit better, but we are doing okay. So it made me feel more comfortable for me to use this account, knowing that the money is technically not mine as deferred compensation and it's still my employer. But I think my employer is strong enough that my money would not be so vulnerable. And that is not always the case at every institution. So you really want to take that into account. And sometimes we don't have that insight. Alicia, what are some of the other drawbacks besides this being deferred compensation and potentially being at risk if our employer was to go bankrupt?
Well, I just want to say, I'm sure people listening to you are like, yeah, you scared me. I'm not using that account, right? Because people are probably like, what? I'm not trying to look into my organization's history, nor do I want my money being confiscated if my organization sells to private equity or does bankruptcy. So I don't want to necessarily scare the listeners, but I do want to make sure that we emphasize that the money is technically not yours until you take it out. Now, the way this usually works, as you mentioned, if you have a strong organization, the likelihood of them going bankrupt is very, very low. Oftentimes, I see these 457B accounts offered, like I mentioned, at very large health systems, very large academic institutions, right? And a lot of them have very large endowments and have a huge finance team, finance department that is looking over the financials and making sure that things are kosher. I've actually not heard one single report of any physician losing their money that was in a 457B. So I don't really think that it happens. Technically speaking, the money is the employer. So I just want to make sure we're not like freaking people out.
Okay, did I scare y'all? I still use it. So clearly, right, it's not that scary. But Alicia, thank you. Thank you for making our audience feel more comfortable.
So yeah, the money's not yours until you take it out, right? So technically it belongs to your employer, which is why it's called deferred compensation. You're deferring your compensation, letting your employer continue to have it so it can be invested over time. And then you'll get your money, you'll get your compensation back at a later date. That's a downside, right? The money doesn't technically belong to you until you take it out. It's subject to your employer's creditors if that were to happen, although I haven't heard any reports of that happening. Another downside is that a lot of jobs have an income threshold you have to meet before you can contribute. And they also have a work requirement. And this is probably why you may not have heard about it at Emory. Emory does have a 457B, but usually, at least the last time I looked at it, I worked at Emory too, is that you have to have worked for that organization for a certain length of time first, and you also have to meet the income threshold. And so if you weren't working there for a long enough amount of time, or you didn't meet the income threshold, then you may not have been eligible for that account. One of the things that I think is really interesting is that different organizations have different income thresholds. And I think you and I had talked about this maybe offline. I know some physicians that work at organizations where the income threshold to be able to use this account is $100,000, right? Most physicians make more than that. And so it's an account that a lot of physicians use versus, like I told you before, at my organization, I think the income threshold might be around like 400K or something like that, right? Maybe at your organization, it's somewhere in the middle. And so I think that there's just different income thresholds you have to meet. And so a lot of people may not even contribute to this. They may not make the income requirements. And so that's a downside, I think, is you have to make a certain amount of money. Another downside is that you really have to look at the distribution options. And that's actually one of the main reasons I'm not contributing to my work retirement account, is because I didn't like the distribution options. What do I mean by that? Well, remember how we said you can put the money in the account, it grows over time, and then you can take out the money when you leave your employer. So if you're age 40 and you leave at 45, you technically can say, I want all my money at that time. Now, most people do not do that, right? If you get a big chunk of money at one time, you got to pay a lot of taxes on that money. And so that kind of defeats the purpose of using the account in the first place. And so what you need to look at and ask about are the distribution options. Basically, what are the different options of how I can get my money once I leave the employer? Some employers make you do it all as a lump sum. That's kind of not good, right? That defeats the purpose. You're going to have a large tax bill. Some employers will say you can take it out over the next 5 years in even installments. So you can take it out over the next 10 years, or you can defer it for another 5 years and take it out over the next 20 years. You have to really look at the distribution options. What are the options that I have available to me, how I can get my money once I leave the employer? And I think the fact that people even have to ask that makes it a downside. We're already trying to get people to contribute the maximum to their work retirement accounts, to their 401k or 403b. Here's this other account. But it's like, oh, okay, well, you got to make a certain amount of money to contribute. You need to have worked for the organization for a certain length of time in order to be able to contribute. And then if you do contribute, you need to make sure that your employer is stable enough so that your money will still be there when you leave. And then you need to look at the distribution options to figure out what are the different options available to you of how you can get your money out. And so I think the fact that you kind of think about these nuances is a disadvantage of the account, right? It's not as easy to use. It's not as much of a no-brainer as a retirement account. And then the last disadvantage is that there's two main types, I find: governmental, which I think you mentioned, and non-governmental. What do I mean by that? Some of the governmental 457Bs means it's backed by the federal government. Very stable, right? You don't have to worry about your money being subject to creditors and things like that. The United States is very stable in that way. But a lot of people, such as myself, such as yourself, we don't have governmental 457Bs. We have non-governmental 457Bs. We'll talk about in a second about some of the nuances and the differences between those accounts. But if I had to summarize it in one statement, I would say the governmental ones are better. They're more stable. They give you more flexibility. And so if you have access to a governmental 457B, then that might almost be very similar to a no-brainer on whether or not you should contribute. Versus if you only have access to a non-governmental one, then you got to ask yourself a few questions first.
Yeah. One of the other considerations was because ours is non-governmental, meaning that it's not secure, the money is technically still my employer's, and then the distribution options that you talked about. So one of the limitations of the non-governmental 457B is that you can't roll it into an IRA or a 401k. So when you figure out what are going to be your distribution options, especially if you are planning to take this money out before 59 and a half, then you might have to take it out as a lump sum. And if that is the case, because you can't roll it over into an IRA or 401k, then you're going to have to pay taxes on that money if you have to take it out in a lump sum. For me, thankfully, when I spoke with the advisor about the account, I can create a distribution plan when I leave my employer and say, okay, I want to take this money out over 10 years, and this is the amount that I want to take out over 10 years. So that allows me to kind of really conceptualize what taxes I will be paying on this money, but not everybody has that option, right? And because you can't roll it over into another pre-tax account potentially, then you have to think about the tax burden of doing that. Another difference is that with the non-governmental plan is that you can only make catch-up contributions within 3 years of retirement. So if you are hoping to just really stash a lot more money into this account, that might not be an option for you yet. You got to figure out where your age is and when you're going to retire. That is one of the differences between governmental and non-governmental. And I know that there are a few other differences. And then the only other thing is that for my account, it's in non-governmental accounts is likely only pre-tax. That doesn't bother me so much because I can factor that into thinking about how much money I have in pre-tax, how much money I have in post-tax, but it just limits your options in thinking about how you want to invest this money and your tax strategy.
Yeah, yeah. I think after hearing that, people are like, okay, I'm confused. There's a lot of nuances. I don't know this stuff as well as you and Brittany do. Just answer my question for me, Leisha. Answer my question for me, Brittany. Should I use mine or should I not use mine? And so this is kind of the waterfall of questions that I ask myself and that I think might be helpful for others. I think the first question is, do you have the money to even contribute? You can think about the nuances all you want, but do you even have an extra $23,500 to put in this account? For some people, they're like, yeah, I have an extra $23,500. Of course I can put the money in that account. For some other people, they're like, no, I'm using every penny I'm getting. It's for this, it's for that. I'm trying to pay for my kids' private school. I'm trying to, invest money for my kids' college. I'm trying to save up to buy a house. I'm trying to get a new car, go on vacation, whatever it is. Maybe other people have other pressing financial priorities. So do you even have the money to contribute? Because if you don't, this is a moot point. The second thing is, can you contribute? Do you even have this account at your job? And if you do you meet the stipulations? Do you meet the income threshold? Do you meet the work threshold? And for some people, the answer is yes. For some people, the answer is no. If the income threshold is $400K and you don't make $400K, well, then you don't really have much of anything to really contemplate. This is not open for you. So do you meet the threshold at your job? If you do meet the threshold and you have the money to contribute, do you trust that your employer is not going to go bankrupt? If you're in meetings and they're talking about, yeah, we're at a deficit of a few $1,000,000, then that might be a red flag that maybe I don't want to put my money in this account. If you're in meetings contrastly and they're talking about your endowment and they've got different ways that they're investing the money and they're expanding and growing, you're like, all right, I trust y'all. We'll see what's going on. If you're not sure, maybe you put some money in the account and you don't completely contribute the maximum, right? It's not an all or nothing. It's not like I have to contribute $23,500 or nothing at all. You can do whatever amount in the middle. I think another one is it a governmental 457B, right? If it's a governmental one, then your money's safe and secure. You know that when you leave your employer, you can roll it into another pre-tax account if you want. You can make some extra catch-up contributions after age 50, that they've got a lot of flexibility. And so you're like, all right, this makes sense. If it's a non-governmental one, then maybe you have to think a little bit harder about that. And then I think the last question is, what are the distribution options, right? How are you going to get your money out when you leave your employer? As we mentioned, if it's a governmental one, you probably have a lot of distribution options. If not, you can roll it into your solo 401k, your 403b, your IRA. If it's a non-governmental one, then you really have to think about the distribution options. Are they going to make me take it as a lump sum, or can I take it out over the next 5, 10, 20 years? And so those are some of the questions that I ask as I was kind of contemplating, am I going to use my job's 457B? And although I understand the tax benefits, I made the decision, no, I'm not going to use my work's 457B. I didn't like the distribution options. The income threshold is pretty high. I like my employer, but I don't know about the financial situation, right? And so I'm a little bit more skeptical when it comes to that. Mine is not governmental, so it doesn't have as much flexibility. And I have more pressing priorities. I'm trying to save up money for a house. I might buy a new car. I travel all the time, so vacation means a lot to me. So those are some of the reasons why I chose not to use the one at my job.
Alicia, thank you for sharing that. I think the decision is definitely not as easy, right, as just you should open up you should contribute to your 401k, you should open up a Roth IRA, do your backdoor Roth IRA. We're saying that this is something that you want to give more consideration, but it is or could be an option for you. So it's not as straightforward of advice that we would typically give. So we want you to really think about this. And Alicia, I think you posed really great questions. I considered this year, do I want to even use the 457B because we have the goal of purchasing more rental property and that will help us with some of our tax burden. So is the 457B necessary for us to help us to shield some of our taxes? So I think this is a year by year consideration and it might change, but we want to say that this is not the standard advice that we would typically give, the things that you should do. This is one of those things that you could do. And Alicia, thank you for breaking that down for us. So now let's talk about fun money. Alicia, how are you spending your money for fun?
So I actually have been buying new running shoes. I bought some Hoka's probably like a year and a half ago. They were basically like walking on clouds. No, Hoka does not sponsor this podcast, but they can call me, email me, ask somebody who likes to go to the gym pretty frequently. I run here and there. I wanted some really comfortable shoes. First of all, I hadn't really heard about them before the last few years. When I worked out on the West Coast, everybody wore Hoka's. And so I was kind of introduced to that brand when I was out on the West Coast. and they looked kind of funky to me. I felt like they looked like Skechers. They weren't as stylish, at least at that time for the folk that I saw. So it was really kind of like, I'm not going to get those shoes. But then I went to the running store and they had some Hokas with a style that I actually did like. And I thought to myself, well, let me try these shoes, right? People probably wouldn't buy them if they weren't as comfortable. And they were so popular on the West Coast. Let me try them. And I swear it was like walking on clouds. I had not felt that way putting my feet into a running shoe before. I've had some very comfortable running shoes from other brands, but nothing really topped the Hokas. They were lightweight. They were just cushioned in the right areas. And so I ended up buying a pair of Hokas at that time and have utilized them for the past year and a half. Well, as you can imagine, running shoes do not last for forever. So I'm like, okay, now it's time for me to re-up. And so I'm going to buy some newer running shoes. And since I'm buying some more running shoes, I'm like, maybe I'll buy a little outfit or something. Sometimes I wear my running shoes to work when I'm wearing scrubs. And so I might also pick out a few new fun scrub colors as well. But that's something fun that I'm doing with money.
I love that. And I have not tried the Hoka brand. Usually I'm a Brooks girl, and Brooks is not sponsoring this podcast either, but they can call me as well. I always think about, okay, how long can I wear the shoes? Because the shoes still feel good. I look at the bottom surface of the shoes. If it looks like the tread is okay, I find myself Googling often, how many miles can I put into my running shoes? And then I have to try to calculate, like, okay, how long have I had these? How many times have I gone for a run? So I am probably at the point of where I need to purchase some new running shoes as well, especially as I prepare for my 10-mile. I'll be putting in more mileage and the weather is getting better. But I have not decided to buy new running shoes yet. I am, however, buying some new luggage. I think we've talked about this before, and this is actually one of the things that I hopefully will not buy, but I've kind of conditioned Brooke, like, hey, ask your daddy to buy mommy a new set of luggage. So I'm still trying to figure out the brand. I think we'll probably go with Away, but I'm looking at some other brands. I know you travel a lot, so let me know if you have any recommendations. People, let me know if you have any recommendations, but that's one of the things that I want. Just like I can zoom through the airport as I'm traveling for all of these conferences and things and really look stylish and have the luggage that works well, because right now the wheel's getting stuck on me and it's slowing me down. And I should probably just build in extra time, but I always push the limits whenever I'm traveling alone. So I need some new luggage.
Yeah. Away is a great brand. I don't have Away luggage. I have Monos. I kind of hear about in my travel groups. They kind of choose between those two brands. I think there are more expensive brands. Obviously, there's like a million different brands of luggage, but I find that a lot of people choose between Away and Monos. The head-to-head studies, I have not confirmed these studies myself, but the head-to-head studies from what I've read on blogs and stuff is that Monos actually rolls better, but Away, depending on the color you want to get, has less scrapes. I have Monos luggage. I have like an entire set. I love it. The way that it is structured allows me to pack a ton of stuff in it. And so I love my Monos luggage. I do. But my favorite color is pink. And so I have pink Monos luggage. And I find that the bigger pieces, whenever I need to check a bag, which is rare, but occasionally I'll check a bag, it gets scuffed up more easily. If you are a person who wants a darker color, it probably won't matter as much. But because I have a lighter color, that's one of the things that I wish I could do differently, is maybe I would have gotten a different color so that you couldn't see as many scuffs. It's so funny. When I was in South Africa with my family, there was another brother and sister that were traveling with us. The guy had to carry on Away luggage and I had to carry on Monos luggage. And my brother was thinking about buying luggage. And so he was like rolling both of them and trying to see which one.
It's like, excuse me, sir, can I roll your luggage for a few minutes?
They were involved with us on the trip, so we knew them quite well by that time. We were all kind of talking about luggage, and my brother was like, well, let me just roll both of these and see which one I like. He agreed with me that he thought Monos rolled a little bit smoother. The Away luggage, like I said, has less scuff. So I think you can't go wrong with either brand. They're both very, very good.
Thank you. All right, I'll have to check it out. My husband has Away, and I've used his luggage a couple of times, and I like the way that it helps me to move throughout the airport.
So stick with your hubby. Stick with your hubby then. Get away.
Well, people, we hope that you learned something in this episode, and we want to thank you for listening always. If you have any questions about anything that we talked about, I know we've been kind of heavy with the solo 401ks, all of these different options, things that we're doing. So if you have any questions, feel free to just message us. We want to answer your questions and make sure everything is clear for you so that you can make wealthy-minded decisions. And until next time. Hello, and thank you for listening to our podcast. And because of that, we have something for you, our Wealthy Minds Blueprint.
Have you ever thought to yourself, I wish I could be better with money? Do you want to start investing and saving for retirement, but keep delaying because you don't know where to start? Our Wealthy Minds Blueprint is here to help.
This guide will teach you what you didn't learn in your training, so you can stop being confused about money and start taking what we call wealthy-minded action.
We'll help you become a master of your finances and simplify simplify investing so you can get started today. Take control of your financial future by downloading your free copy of the Wealthy Minds Blueprint now and start building the wealth you deserve.
Hello, everybody. It's me, Brooke. I'm recording a little disclaimer for my mommy, Dr. Brittne Halford, and her friend, Dr. Lisa Taylor. Just so you know, they're not financial advisors, tax professionals, lawyers, or financial planners. Everything you hear is for education and entertainment. It's not strict financial advice, you know. So use your best judgment, chat with a tax professional, and all those other people that you need to talk to. Thanks for tuning in today. Keep cruising on your journey to wealth and wellness. Bye-bye.
One of the most important things you can do is ensure you have long-term disability insurance. Long-term disability insurance secures your income if the unexpected happens and you are unable to work due to medical illness, chronic conditions, or an accident.
Unfortunately, all insurance agents aren't created equal. Some of them are so focused on making a sale that they fail to reveal certain necessary information, tell you about discounts available, or clearly explain the process. Pradeep Otto and his team at PKA Insurance Group are different. They have a reputation of putting people over profits and always doing what's best.
If you need life insurance or disability insurance, reach out to Pradeep and his team today. They will help you get the insurance you need with the service you deserve.